Let's talk to Sol Campbell, who was there for TalkSport, former England player, of course, club and country superstar. Sol, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
Thanks very much indeed. I listened to you last night. I could hear the sort of the pain in your voice of how this is a game of inches. It reminded me, I'm sure you've seen it, of that great Al Pacino speech in Any Given Sunday, where he's like, it is all about inches, and the game was all about inches.
You're fighting for every inch, and yesterday or last night was a big, was when you look at the game, it came down to inches. There were, even at the last knock-ins, John Stones, if it's a slightly higher, if he's just a little bit more jump, he just brushes his hair, he touches that, Donnarumma, no chance. It's flicks into the goal, and it's a different story. And we just have to remember the lads have just done unbelievable. To get this far with a young team and under all sorts of pressures, and some of the players coming back from injury, getting into the team, taking the nation on, and bringing us through this, and a celebration. As we just fell short. The Italians came in and early goal, but they started to kind of work their work the positions, hold the midfield, and it was an onslaught. We had few kind of occasions, but they just controlled the game from once we scored, and all of a sudden they started controlling the game.
I heard a statistic last night, which was quite shocking, that England never got another shot on goal after the goal that was scored in the rest of the game, which is pretty much tells you the story, doesn't it?
It does. I think for us, they had a Jorginho, who obviously plays at Chelsea. He had a marvellous game, and then Verratti, PSG, and Barella, and there's three of them, very clever guys in midfield who have the ball, and if you give them space, I think we probably needed another body in there. Yes, we wanted to protect the kind of back five, but I think sometimes when you've got a back five, you should work it out how to. I don't need you guys here. We're getting done in the midfield. Push up and go into the midfield. Yeah. Our five can take on these three players.
Absolutely,
that's what should have happened, really.
Yeah, but it was a bit of a boys v men situation, wasn't it? In the end, because a lot of those guys who played for England so well during the rest of the tournament, I think they became slightly outmanoeuvred, if you like, by some of the things that the Italians are so good at doing. I mean, you've played against plenty of Italian teams in your time. You'll know that when Chiellini pulled back Saka that time and just did literally grab his shirt, I thought, oh, here we go. They're not going to let us. They're not going to let England pass. They're not going to let England win. They're going to do everything that they can do to stop it.
Yeah, and that's not. They're past masters at it, and I feel. We've got that as well. I used to be like that, but they just had a lot of players, and they fought for every inch, and they were lively in the box. Like Buccini, scoring a fantastic goal to equalise. They just kept going, and they were live in the box. It was relentless. It wasn't sporadic. It was relentless, and in the end, it was just. We did well just to hang on, really. We had a couple of chances here and there, but they really controlled the game. Once they went 1-0 down, they controlled the game.
Yeah. And do you think the fans and the media, possibly, and the pundits even, were getting a bit carried away, a bit over enthusiastic before the game? Because Italy are, after all, the best team in the world right now. And I was watching, some of the setup for the TV coverage, and it was literally a done deal that England were going to win.
No, I think you have to be confident. You're at home. I think if Italy was at home, they'd be confident to win. It doesn't always work out like that. You see the results, what's happened. We've done really well. It's natural that you show a bit more confidence, and it's a natural human thing. Yes, you've got to be cautious. Yes, you've got to understand the opposition. The Azzurri are a fantastic side. It hasn't lost for 33 games, and obviously now 34. You've got to take that in. You've got to say, hey, you've got to respect that, but then you've got to say what we've got, what we can bring to the table. And we had a good tournament, and we just fell short on a couple of things. I felt we just got outmaneuvered in midfield. They controlled the midfield, and once you control the midfield, like in chess, once you control the middle of the board, then you start kind of, you know the outcome.
Absolutely right. And what a shame that we have to talk about this, and we'll get to the racism later, but what about these idiotic fans, get drunk take drugs, break into the stadium. I'm told that it happened during the Denmark game as well, but nobody really found out about it. And UEFA and FIFA together didn't really sort of have a clue about how to handle it, didn't want the matches to be postponed by COVID. But looking at the scenes in like Leicester Square, it's a bit similar to what the England fans did in Marseille in 2016. And you just think, I don't know what's wrong with these people.
I think for me, the vast majority of fans are great. They're fine. They're allowed to kind of, talk, sing. I think once it goes beyond that, then it starts, vandalism, drug taking, things like that. You're not going to stop everyone doing this. But what you can do is there's a little bit of decorum, because you have to realize the world is watching. Around the world is watching. UEFA, FIFA, they're watching. And if it continues like that, we're trying to get the World Cup.
Yeah.
It's going to be very, very difficult when they look at all the bids and things like that. And we could have a really good bid, but they're gonna go back. There'll be one or two of them saying, "Can I just show you this slide? Can I just show you this video? Can I just show you this report about having a major tournament in England or the UK?" So that will definitely count against us, and they'll never ever forget this. They were thinking that we've passed this, we've moved on. We talk about it. There's a lot of people saying a lot of things on the internet and papers, and shows like this, and everybody wants to move on and see a brighter day. But when you get dragged back to this type of occurrences, it's difficult for them to say, "Hey, should we consider, UK for the World Cup?"
No, well, this is it. I mean, because we've all seen it before, Sol. We've seen the chair throwing, the fans barricading themselves inside pubs, the fans sort of chucking bottles. And in fact, they did it, it's clear they're not just doing it when they're abroad. They did it here. And apparently Wembley Way was an absolute nightmare. I don't know how easy it was for you to get to the game yesterday and get back.
I was there 4 hours before.
Yeah, but what about leaving? I mean, I'm told people were staying there till about midnight because it wasn't safe to leave. And the problem is that it seems to me that I don't know who's responsible for that, whether it's UEFA, whether it's the FA, whether it's Wembley Stadium security. But clearly there were people at Wembley Way who probably shouldn't have been there.
Yeah, it's difficult because, there's every country has to run the show. Then you got obviously UEFA. They're kind of caught in in between a rock and a hard place, really. Do you have the police there in numbers? It's a UEFA gig, but it's Wembley, the FA. It kind of falls into different places. So it's almost you need someone to kind of take charge. But the main thing for me is the world is watching, and we're not gonna. The authorities that dish out the who's ever going to get the World Cup or European tournaments, they're going to say, well, London's off our list, or UK's off our list.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if they want to behave like that if they go to Qatar, because I think they might find themselves being locked up for the rest of their lives.
Yes, I think, but also there's no drink as well.
Yeah, well, maybe that's the way forward for these guys, because it does seem incredibly sort of like an English, and I know that this shouldn't be the dominant conversation, and we shouldn't have to talk about it, but equally we can't ignore it. And as many people I've heard talking this morning and last night saying, it's not a tiny number of people, it's quite a few thousand of them who behave like this and who were behaving like this, and it's not good enough to say, oh, well, maybe the kickoff should have been earlier, maybe we shouldn't have had any alcohol. It's a problem in society, which is kind of what John Barnes was saying, except he was saying it about race. I'm saying it about hooligans.
I think it's been with us for a very, very long time. It is in other countries, but it just seems to kind of rear its head frequently in these scenarios with us. What they have to realise is that we had a wonderful tournament. We had a wonderful tournament. The guys played extremely well. They exceeded further than anyone was thinking. Everyone was saying, well, quarterfinals of this team, and we got to the finals and playing good football as well. Yes, the kind of tournament opened up for us and the big guns, and we were on the right side of the draw. That helps.
They still had to win the games though, and they won them pretty convincingly, didn't they?
Yeah, still have to win games, but the main thing is we did really, really well. And that's what we should be celebrating. We should not be celebrating, racism. We should be celebrating the beautiful diversity of this team and how far they got.
Yeah, absolutely. Stay with us, Sol, for a moment. We're going to come back to you in a couple of seconds. Let's have a listen to Gareth Southgate.
Well, in terms of the players, they've given everything they could have, not only tonight but through the whole tournament. They should hold their heads high. They've, they're a team who have pulled together, have given the country some incredible evenings. But of course, tonight, the devastation of getting so close and not being able to give our country the trophy that we wanted to is difficult to put into context. You can imagine how the dressing room is.
Gareth Southgate there saying that he takes full responsibility for picking the players and the order in which they took the penalties. I think he made some mistakes there. We'll talk about that a little bit later on. Sol Campbell's with us. Sol, let me ask you about the racism aspect here as well, because obviously you've played at a time when supposedly racism in football was much worse than it is now, and yet we've still got this persistent idiocy for me from people abusing these young kids who were taking the penalties. And, I don't think anyone in their right mind is going to criticise the players. I think it was a bit unfair to put Saka in there, but he volunteered to do it, and I'm sure he'll get over it. But what can we do about this racist abuse, particularly on Twitter?
Well, Twitter's been, how it's all formulated foundations is free speech. And, what's happened along the line is it's gone to free speech, but in this free speech, whatever you say, and there's no kind of, you're on the keyboard and doing whatever you want, saying whatever you want. That's the trouble, really. The building blocks is almost, I'm not saying the horse is bolted, but we've got to almost somehow sit down and talk to these big, huge platform companies and say, hey, there must be a way. If we can get a man on the moon, there's a way of, and the technology now, there's a ways and means of kind of collaborating. And when someone starts typing a certain kind of, these letters and to kind of form words, it just instantly, as soon as you press send, it just instantly kind of evaporates it or whatever. I know it's difficult. People want free speech and things like that, but there's a limit when it goes into racism. And yes, it's in society. Yes, it's in a lot of, from businesses to sport to walking down the street. There's a lot of education has to be done. But I think the trouble is you're not going to eradicate it all. You just have to kind of, keep plugging away and try to educate people in all shapes and forms, in all societies and all platforms and all sporting events and things like that have a real problem with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's been eradicated more or less. I mean, you'll see more football than I do, but it's more or less eradicated now from the chanting and from live events, hasn't it? So is it?
Sometimes, it does still raise its head sometimes.
Does it still? Yeah. Does it still do it? Well, what is that all about?
Well, we haven't had crowds for such a long time as well.
Well, that's true. That's true. Yeah, so. But I mean, the days of the terrible racist chanting that used to happen, maybe when you were a player, I mean, that seems to have gone.
That's gone.
But now I wonder if social media is the only place where they can sort of make those kinds of statements,
Well, vent whatever they want to say, It's an easy thing because you don't even have to kind of put your name down. Just put an account and it could be anything. And right. Bob's your uncle. You can start, keyboard warriors and just, send out all this vile stuff.
Yeah. I mean, you've said before, Sol, that you feel that if you were not a black football manager, you might have had more opportunities. Do you still believe that's the case today?
I think we're moving forward in a lot of things. We just got to keep going. I think for me, it's all about the opportunities that are out there. I think everybody has to look at this and kind of look at talent is not held by colour. It's held by who you are and what you can give. Some people have to look beyond that. There is still the old school there, want the old school managers and things like that, and don't want to change. I think as time goes on, diversity in the boardroom, diversity in the crowds, I think it all helps to kind of make up the decisions of some of the management or the people who are picking the next managers or the next next physio or the next doctor or the next assistant coach or whatever.
So is there any point to all of these sort of kick it out campaigns? I mean, we had a weekend off Twitter, didn't we, a few months ago, where all football clubs decided not to be on Twitter for the weekend to try and put an end to racism. I mean, these are all kind of what I regard as sort of slightly virtue signalling events, which really don't make any difference.
I think, every little bit helps. It's not hurting. I think you got to kind of, if they weren't doing it, they're not doing their jobs. So I think it's nice to kind of do these things, but it has to come from all angles. It has to come from government. It has to come from big business. It has to come from the people. It has to come from schools. It has to come from people, media guys as well, with these big platforms. And you got to slowly, I think, as a drip, you got to drip feed this through. So and it's got to be on a continuous and longevity. We have to have longevity on this. We can't just it's done and we're not hearing about it so much. Let's just move on. It's a continual thing. And I think with the with having the knee, I think England really showed a fantastic kind of gesture there. And obviously some of the Premiership clubs as well, not all, but it just shows that it does raise its head.
Yeah, but it's not really making. But if what's happening today is still the same as it was happening 4 years ago, it's not really making any difference, is it?
Yeah, but the thing is, though, it's you're not going to eradicate this thing in 4 years or 10 years. This has been around for centuries. I mean, you got to recognise this. It has got better. People have realised that, and we've got a long way to go. But we're doing. Everybody's doing their bit. It's not going to be like, wave the magic wand. It's going to all happen. We've got to, it's a slow burner. We've got to keep on going. It's almost like a generation thing. But we're on a good start. We're talking about it. That's the main thing. We're understanding it. We're understanding that it exists, and we've got to do something about it. And that's the main thing. Once you know and people admit it exists, then you can do something about it. Everybody, and we are, and we're making a step forward, but we've got a long way to go.
Okay. One final thought, Sol. What lessons should England be learning from the game last night, so that when they do go to Qatar for the World Cup, they're a stronger team?
I think in that motion, I think we've got to go a little bit, trust the players and maybe go toe-to-toe. We played a wonderful team that hasn't lost for 34 games. Yeah. And, I think with Donnarumma, I think he only conceded one goal in the last number of games. We just got to go toe-to-toe and also believe in ourselves even more. I felt they had three in midfield, we had two. I think we should have just gone toe-to-toe in midfield, because once they started controlling the ball and having far too much time on the ball, they just dictated it. It was just an onslaught. I think we'll learn from that. It's definitely going to hurt the lads because we're so close. They pushed them to the end, but just didn't have that little bit just to get over the line in the 90 minutes or the extra time. And then obviously penalties is a lottery. Yes, we haven't got a good record with penalties, but the lads did it really well. The young players, they'll come back strong. But they've done our nation proud. Our nation proud. They've done amazingly. They've gone way and above all our expectations, and they've done us proud.
Sol Campbell, thank you very much indeed.